Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O divine creative force, O divine masculine and feminine, O divine mother and father, O divine creator. No matter what you call it, regardless of land, label, or language, there is but one, like the late great Dr. Khalid used to emphasize back in the day when I was in the Nation of Islam from 89 to 95, 96. Um, Family, we have a special guest coming up in a few minutes. But before I do that, today's Consciousness in the Conscious Community is brought to you by some dear sponsors and advertisers right here on my channel. Enough love and respect to them. First of all, I also want to big up one of my new sponsors, the one, the only, High Heels, botanicals that support the healing of the body. Highheelsapothecary.com. That's highheelsapothecary.com. Also, another great sponsor, beacons.ai/I am vegan vixen. Free 30-minute chakra wellness consultation with Joy Divine Love with each book purchase. So make sure you go to the site, purchase the book, and you get a free 30-minute chakra wellness 7-day detox consultation. So she can help you through as far as detoxing and all that good stuff. Family, also coming, and let me make sure I shout out, of course, my books. My new book, I'm working on my new book, is about almost finished. This one is called Numerovational Relationship Chronicles and Workbook for Mental Stability, based on two of my bestsellers, Numbers Are Simple, People Are Complicated, and Numerovation for Mental Stability. Yeah, we got to get these relationships right. Business, intimate, marriage, otherwise. I'm even trying to get myself right. So I'm learning from my own books and my own studies and my own cross references. Also, want to shout out my dear brother Ashra Kwesi and beautiful wife Mira Kwesi. If you want to go on that historical educational tour with them to Egypt, Cairo, and also Ethiopia, you can also give them a call at 214-371-0206 and tell them that King Simon sent you. All right. Also, big up to my dear sister Nicholas Brooklyn, Nicholas Cultural. All you have to do if you want to get 10% off of all retail purchases, take a QR scan of this particular flyer, carry it and show it to them, and you get 10% off of all retail. But they also do wholesale. So if you want to find out about the wholesale, call them at 718-858-4400. And I got to shout out my hypnosis therapist, the one, the only, hypnosiswithkendall.com. Very helpful. I got a session on October 9th, so I can't wait for that. Another session, 800-396-MIND. 28 years of serving the community, one mind at a time. Also, enough respect to this sister, transitionalhealing.etsy.com. She got some great books called Grandma's Secrets and Know Thyself, where she breaks down your whole birthday, your name, your zodiac, all of that, your life path, all of that, and give you a whole booklet, a nice thick book. I have one myself, so enough respect. And of course, Grandma's Secrets is about the secrets that your grandparents kept and didn't tell. So she interviewed a few major people in our community, so you want to go and check that out. Also, of course, Baba Lloyd Strayhorn, Lloyd-Strayhorn.com, 800-581-4400, 4401, pardon me. That's 581-4401, the well-renowned astronumerologist and palmist. He also does palm consultation also. And last but not least, our beautiful sister, New Diamonds, artist and oracle, handmade jewelry, crystal wire, wrapping classes, and much more. She also does oracle consultation, astrology, birth charting, counseling, Reiki healing, and so much more. Hit her up at newdiamonds.net, New Diamonds on all platforms, and also $ New Diamonds 101. You know, she's a guest co-host with me all the time. Enough respect to her. And of course, we always got a disclaimer. The views, comments, and opinions expressed by guests, speakers, or authors on this YouTube channel do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by this channel's broadcasters and its sponsors. Parental guidance is advised. All right. I just want to let y'all know what's coming up. I have the legendary reggae dancehall artist, Sister Carol, and her beautiful daughter, coming out with their new album. They came out with their new album together for the first time, a complete album. Nakeba, Emcee, she's also going to be, and I know this family since I was young, and Sister Carol is one of the great reggae artists that actually brought me on stage when I was a reggae artist. I made it to number 5 on the reggae chart back in 89, 1990. And this sister brought me on stage to perform before the 12 tribes of Israel. So big up to Sister Carol. She'll be on my show Friday, October 10th at 11 a.m. sharp. They doing it, work in the morning. We're doing it in the morning, all right? And also look out for this next class that I got coming up called Invisible Influences, a spiritual, physical, and numerovational perspective of invisible influences as I break down the words invisible influence and how they can work in your life with the numbers, all right? So, family, without any further ado, the brother that I'm about to bring up for you, man, he's been an inspiration for many years. He used to live in Brooklyn, New York back in the day. He used to live in New York. Let me just not say just Brooklyn. Of course, he's trained martial arts. He knows of Sanukas and karate and all that kind of stuff. But this brother that I'm about to bring up for y'all, family, is not only a world-renowned radio personality himself, but also he's an educator, a historian, and family that don't know, he was the official MC for the 2000 gathering of the Masters where Bobby and Khalid and everybody was there. A lot of people that was there is not even here today. Dr. Africa was there. Dr. Blair was there. I mean, all of the greats was there that time. Without any further ado, let's bring on my brother for you, your brother, our brother. Let's bring on the world famous and legendary Wanique Shabazz. Let me see if he's there. Can you hear me, brother?
I can hear you, brother.
Good. What's up, big brother?
Everything is in order, man. Everything's in order. Everything's happening accordingly, you know. Man, that's a lot, you know, for you to be able to pull up and big up and try to put me in a position where I got to now live up to everything that you just stated. You know, hearing this coming from you, the King Simon himself, you know. So I give thanks, you know, for the aspiration, and I got to aspire to make sure that I can reach some of that you talked about. World renowned is a global thing, isn't it? But brother, thank you, man. It's been an honor. It's a really honor to be on this platform with you at this time. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, man. You brought me on your channel over there on that great station, man. WRFG.org. Make sure y'all check out this. What time is your time slot on that show?
I'm on midnight on Sunday night. We call it Monday, Sunday night, Monday. So you call it Monday.
Monday. Yeah. That's cool. And you've been doing that for a long time. I remember even coming in out of town when my sister Karen Mason was also.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. In fact, her show preceded mine. You know, exactly. She was on from 10 to midnight.
I remember.
You know, I've been on since the 1900s, man. You know,
I miss my sister, man, because I was on 1900s. Radio.
That's when I started.
I know from when I was on radio and doing my club stuff and reggae stuff back in the day. So I know Karen from her. She was a very, very, very highly influential person, especially in the Caribbean music world in New York, and she helped me out a lot.
You're kind of breaking up and you're freezing. I'm not sure it's on me that's getting you freezing up. I'm not sure whether it's on my side.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, bro?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I can hear you now, yes.
I see you freezing back and forth. Okay, good.
But you
Hold
can't
on
hear
one
me.
second. Hold on one second. Let me just check. I can hear you. Let me just check something. Hold on. Okay, good. Can you hear me now, brother?
I can hear you now.
Got it. All right, my brother, welcome to today's Consciousness in the Conscious Community. Man, let's go back into time where my brother Wanique got his consciousness, because even that name Wanique Shabazz has its own consciousness, its own vibration, brother. Please go back into time with how you got into your consciousness and what led you to where you're at today, my brother.
Wow, that can take a good nice stretch, but I'll do the best to truncate it to deal with that. You know, obviously, you know, when we talk about time travel, you know, that's one thing that we have to be able to do a retrospect as to where we are, where we have been, what our journey has provided us, and where it has led us to, and we may be right now in terms of what we are now espousing on the path while we're still on this path, this life journey. But yeah, it started back in the 1900s for me as well. Of course, being born in the 1900s, and then obviously a little later on, about 10, 15 years from that, when I was birthed, I had the opportunity to be exposed to, let me just give more clarity about geographically speaking. I was born in Medina, known as Brooklyn, New York. Right. Brownsville, Ocean Hill, Brownsville. I was in Tilden Houses. That's where it all began for me. Okay. And it was a great experience because that was around the time between the 60s and the 70s when things were unfolding. Of course, Black Power movement was happening. A lot of consciousness and a lot of things that were happening by way of gangs. The gang, we had the Tomahawks, the Unknown Riders, we had the Jolly Stompers, we had, and then also that merged into what became, an offshoot of the Nation of Islam. As speaking of which, I want to give homage and acknowledge the life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which he would have been 128 today, 28. So he was born on the 7th of October, but it was his wisdom and his provisions, of information as a platform that provided me by way of my elder brother, who actually was a member of the Nation of Islam. But he started out, of course, in the 5% Nation, right? And then he, transitioned into being a part of the Nation of Islam. Where he was in New York, he was the local accountant or something to that effect, for the nation for the mosque of Brooklyn Mosque. Right. But that also encouraged me. Now, I never really was a registered Muslim. I never had any determination. I was around in the generation where we were learning from, of course, the nations of the gods and earth. Yeah. And everything that we did was based on those lessons that was provided us by way of course, Allah, as we call them, the clan of 13X, who took his, extrication out of the Nation of Islam because of the rigidness and the not so much, catering toward the youth and the younger. So, of course, with his capacity to understand what he represented, he made a decision that he was no longer going to be in the Nation of Islam. And such, and that was also prompted by Malcolm. Malcolm told him that, we know you say you this and that and the other, but you can't teach that here. Right. When he was a law and all that. So Malcolm actually really truly excommunicated him from the nation.
Yes, he did. That's right. That's right.
That's the real history.
That's real.
And that was good because that worked for him in his favor because he was able to get out into the youth and become, as being dejected, he was now accepted as being one that was not bringing us into a regimented religious type thing by being in the nation, in terms of, the stipulations that came to being registered, and we still had the capacity to maintain the streets and still be in the streets. Mm-hmm. and utilize, the lessons that was coming out of the Nation of Islam, or that would allow for us to be able to study and become, actualized in the 120 lessons. And this is part of, what started my journey in terms of being out in the streets and be debating in the streets and, of course, having the mathematics available to us and, and utilizing that for the purposes of undergirding knowledge of self, right? This is one of the things that it did. And I want to make sure that I get proper credits because I don't hear too much of this credits, about the capacity to study. Study habits were provided because it was courteous. If you didn't know your lessons, you wouldn't come outside for that day. You wouldn't come into because you knew you're going to be in a cipher one way or the other. You're going to find yourself having to decide power with her and how to put a square in a cipher. So one of the things that we knew that once you put it in your square, you can be in a cipher. Because they said you can't put a square in a circle, but yes, you can. We were able to do that quite readily and quite often. Exactly. And it was great because it allowed us, to be able to now have debate capacities and skills and acumen, and we were able to now take wisdom because I was always, an avid reader. Yes. And in fact, it was one of my comforts, that happened when I had a family was broken, after my mother and my father decided to divide the force or divorce, as we call it. They decided to divide the force and make their, sojourns against each other, and I was able to observe that and say, okay, how do I remain whole in one as they divide themselves? Because I am, both of them come together forever as the 46 chromosomes that they provided me. So I had to now find a way to find comfort. Now, a lot of people find comfort in a lot of things. I found comfort in literature and reading, so I began to study and read the Bible and read the books, the dictionary from cover to cover and the Bible, and everything. And that helped me when I started to get into the building ciphers. And of the 5 nations and 5% and the gods on earth. So, and that was a great experience. It was a great experience, and I still really, truly, give a lot of reverence to it, because it truly provided, a foundation and a basis for understanding and deciphering and discerning the way that we can build, or destroy, and how we can manifest the highest quality of life. And again, that's why I'm going to say you want to give homage to brother and elder ancestor Honorable Elijah Muhammad for him being able to receive the information that he got and put it out to the masses, and did the best thing in terms of an organized structure in terms of the NOI. And you will know because you were part of the NOI. And so you're very actively, understanding that. So that's where it really started for me. And because my brother was very much adamant about that, of course, then there came the consumption changes, things we ain't going to eat no more, we shouldn't eat anymore, and reasons why we shouldn't. So that changed and led me into holistic healing and holistic health. Vegan before it was even popular or whatever. Vegetarian first, then vegan, of course, and removing certain things that was not really necessary for, the nutrients or the consumption that will allow for the optimal health that we should have. And go way back even, of course, when Elijah Muhammad provided the How to Eat to Live book, books 1 and 2.
Yes, sir.
And then to really get a sense of what is really happening to us based on the consumption habits, and what he termed at the time, the slave food that he talked about quite readily. And he was one of the ones that experienced real strict, rigid habits in consumption. And I give thanks for that, because without that foundation, I wouldn't be where I am now. I have now almost 40 years vegan. So.
Right. Family, the 5% has been part of my thing at 14. That's what I joined. The 5% became part of the 5%. So I know where you're coming from. I had to escape the baby skulls back in the day.
Right. That's right.
They try to bring me in. Escape them. But and a lot of people don't realize that consciousness, it has levels to it. There's levels to this consciousness. Right. And even back in the days, certain gangs had their own consciousness. No women and children supposed to be hurt. They had a code of ethics, code of conduct sometimes, and then it just over time changed. And during that midst of the 5% nation, what did you see of the Moors, and what did you see of the Ansar Allah community back in the day?
Well, the Ansar Allah community, of course, it was another influential thing, because it actually was. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Those are very much instrumental, because they so much ran parallel to the Nation of Islam and the 5% Nation. Right. I too, my first introduction was 13. So my life worked in 13 and also worked in 7s, and by 14 I was already in the midst of, writing lessons or plus lessons, and all kinds of things I still have a record of, in my keep, because I am, the keeper of the word and the keeper of the record. Hence my name, Tehuti, which is my, some of my part of my representation in terms of where I am today. Right. But the Ansar Allah community, of course, Imam Isa at the time was, very much influential. He was in the Bushwick area. Yep. He had, gathered up a lot of property there, and was a community. Really, truly was a community unto itself. That you can go and you can find, the comfort and the protection, and also full of, a lot of information and wisdom. In fact, I have some of those, out pamphlets and stuff that he put out, which was classics. Of course, reading from back to front as opposed to the back, and and I can go through a lot of what that represented. But we were actually traveling throughout all those different areas. Myself and a couple other brothers. Some of the brothers transition in the ancestral realm now, and some are not, and still very much actively, righteously engaging. But but that was again the reason why. Well, maybe I can speak best for myself, of course, that there was no real commitment to any organized structure of religion, because there was so much available to us. There was so much, that was out there that we could take and parcels and pieces of it and make it what it needs to be based on what we were dealing with, based on our rites of passage, and what we had to experience in maintaining a sense of who we are, so we can be able to now move through that, because that's when, all the hip hop movements started, Rakim and Eric B, and and then those things came together. But it being in Brownsville, Brooklyn, as I was Medina, it was a lot of combativeness in terms of what it was to maintain your sense of self and your sense of righteousness, and there's a lot of things going on that created an influx of, drugs and chemical warfare, which happened with crack. And I tell people talk about the crack era, but they don't talk about it from the standpoint that it was a war on the 5%.
That's right.
It was not, it seemed like it overlapped because drugs do that, because of the appetite for drugs based on the conditioning that we live in. Mm-hmm. But the real target for that was the brothers who was out there talking about they were God. Yes. And talking about they had the knowledge of self that would transform things. And they were challenging all the Freemasons and exposing that particular ritual and all that. So there was a level of us being very much as a radical militant group. That could not be contained, and could not be infiltrated in a sense, because you had to really be in the streets in order to appreciate what the nation of the 5% of God's nation was about. So knowledge of self, understanding the lessons, studying your lessons, knowing them verbatim as best possible, and being able to live by the code. Like you said, it's a code, and that code was really important for what we now see as those of us what does the 5% look like? They look like you and me. You don't know who they are until they expose themselves, so they reveal themselves by way of conversations or interviews such as this.
Yes. And that you said something key in the beginning, around the beginning of what you was laying out, especially when your mom and your dad decided to divorce or divide the force. Have you noticed going back into time, there was a divide of the force that created the 5%.
Absolutely.
They're the divide of the force that created, of course, Yahweh ben Yahweh. He came out of the Nation of Islam. Dividing of the force with the Ansar also, because he came out of Sheikh Dawood, and also so there's always this dividing of the force. You know what I'm saying? So what do you think about that? That going through my mother and father went through divorce. Your mother and father went to divorce. We're seeing the dividing of forces and divorces in all these organizations. What is that all about from Wanique's perspective?
Well, it's relative, and relative means that it's kin. That means that it's part of the family process and the family dynamic. And we have to determine whether or not we know how to discern what that force being divided means for us. Right. Because what happens is that we tend to think we have to choose sides. And that hence they call schizophrenia or bipolar, and when you start thinking that there's two different things happening, that you can't focus and put it together as one. And I wanted to say, speaking of that, as a lunar process, because today, and that I'm very much enmeshed in Olmec Nubu cosmology, and there's always a synchronicity about what is happening at any given time. Yeah. And one of the things that happens is called the lunar tone, and the lunar tone provides the capacity for us to be able to recognize what is happening at any given time. And there's a level of cosmology that through an ephemeris that can be put together to show you what's happening based on ancient science and ancient texts and ancient, of course, vibrations of information. So I was saying that because, as I was talking about today, what today was, and representative of the issue, the energy of today, and you asked me about the dividing the force, it just so happens that today happens to be what is known to be the red lunar earth. And of course, right. I know I don't have much time to share about that, but then people can go to my website to get more insight about what it is to understand Olmec cosmology and what it means for us to represent that. But today, brother, as I know I have provided for you a GPS report.
Yes, I do still have it. Yes,
about the power of who you are relative to your abundance and the thing that you do so well. And you have yet to open that gift and really see the gift in that bad boy. But there's a lot in that package that you'll see.
A lot of jewels, bro. A lot of jewels.
Absolutely. So the red lunar earth is where we are today, and that will speak to relative to what's influencing this conversation or discussion or this particular interview or this interaction. And the lunar tone is that polarizes, right? And as we talk about dividing the force, today would be I polarize in order to evolve, stabilizing synchronicity. Right, I seal the matrix of navigation as I talk about life path with the lunar tone of challenge, and we're guided by the power of universal water. And galactic activation portal that provides us an opportunity to project ourselves into the future in the right now, to understand what we are now laying the groundwork for the now future or the future now, which everything is now, everything's happening right now, everything's in the present as the gift we have. The preset, it was preset, it was there before you got there, waiting for you to show up. right? So when we talk about that to the standpoint of the understanding the tones, that's what we are speaking about. When you ask the question about what about that division and all that, what happened? Well, let me just give you maybe a more structured way to respond to that, Brother King Simon.
Yes, sir.
So it comes from like, dealing with the unification of the purpose, with purpose, right? And that comes the stabilization of polarity, right? So the nature of our universe is such that polarization is an inevitable phase in the process of creation, an expansion of the one into two polar extremes, whether expressed as north-south, right? That polarity, right? Yin-yang, masculine, feminine energies, or other polarized aspects of self. The lunar tone, which is where we are today, calls for a stabilization of these aspects within us. So that polarization into two extremes in any given situation allows us to identify the challenge while recognizing that these two aspects are neither good or bad.
Yeah.
Really acting as counterbalance to each other in the ultimate equilibrium of the whole. So by addressing the polar aspect, as you're asking me and want me to delve into based on the larger aspects of the organizational structure and what we did as people, when we decide to travel these different belief systems, which I call the BS that we travel through and find, right? And embracing the challenge, right? Why? Because there is then a basis from which growth and creativity may unfold. So that's the dynamic of what it is that happened with all these different polarizations of organizations that happen, and of course, the spawning of different developments and aspects of information and wisdom that shows how we are very much a very universal people, and that we have a universal approach, and most of that can be seen vibrationally through the activity that the results provide or present. Because everything is about doing a lot of things, but are you able to show tangible results? How it becomes something that is necessary for the sustenance or the substance of that which we need to maintain what we have. So that's where we are relative to the fact that we're having this conversation about the consciousness in the conscious community. We have to really be mindful and be clear and be very much sincere about the fact that I wanted to provide that to say to you that it's like echoes of enlightenment, right? And you deal with that because of your numerology. You're a powerhouse when it comes to understanding numerology and how it's functioning based on numbers that don't lie. But I say when the conscious forget to stay awake, when the conscious forget to stay awake, that's part of the issue that we have. Because as I talked about today, is lunar Earth, we polarize in order to evolve, stabilize the synchronicity, but we have to seal that matrix of navigation with that lunar tone of challenge. It means that the Earth teaches us that all is synchronized, not random. Things are happening in synchronic order. Things are not happening just because things are happening, and we claim to think that. But the lunar tone of challenge brings us, we must stabilize into full view. So going back to what you said about your families being divorced and organizations and being divorced and dividing that force, we have to determine me as a combination, a collection of chromosomes that were provided 23 by 2, 46 that was given to me by way of my parents. I have to see how to make that maintain its wholeness so I don't be
all over the place. Right.
Yeah, because that's what happens. You become dismembered.
Yes, sir. That's right.
So this is when we come to remember, recollect, bring it back together, bring it into the wholeness, and come to the peace and the harmony of not trying to judge one over the other, because you're only judging parts of yourself, and that reflects the way your body and your reception of energy, where you don't have dis-ease or discomfort, because we think we have rights to judge that which we come through because we think it should be ideal, and it didn't happen the way it was. Now, mind you, we're not giving any pass to any egregious behavior or things that need to be reckoned with based on people's capacity to maintain a focus on the proper presentation of their riding life. Because we have this thing about we didn't have to get here, and two people grinding, coming together, bumping and grinding was their choice. And when I got here, now they have to determine how I'm going to turn out. But yeah, there's a certain level of guardrails that are needed up until a point. But then when I have free mind and free will and free thought process, I have to now determine how to keep myself whole and not judge a part of myself by virtue of behavior that I cannot control.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A family that are just tuning in, we got our brother Wanique Shabazz in the building. Radio personality, educator, historian. Again, he's been on this loving, high-rising grind for a long time. Big up to Queen Esther in the building watching. What's up, Queen Mother? What's up? She out there in Africa. And big up to Sekhmet Fire Goddess. Big up to Sunflame in the building. Big up to Joy Love. I just seen Joy Love, one of our sponsors. Also, Michelle Bethia, the wife of one of my martial arts teachers, Master Mo Bethia, Mahalia Bethia from 52 Blocks. What's up, family? You know how we do. We still get down with it. I got to go like this and salute. Show them love. Holly in the building, everybody that's here. Again, family, make sure you support our beautiful brother, man, and what he does. I'm going to share his link. Actually, is pinned to the top of the chat. His link is pinned to the top of the chat. Of course, his email is here, Wanique Shabazz at Gmail, Wanique at WRFG.org, Wanique Shabazz website.com. His IG is Wanique Shabazz, of course, and you can go to his show. He's on every someday, Sunday on WRFG.org if you want to go and check it out online, because a lot of y'all are all over the place. Of course, build a better world.iwb.coop. All right, big up to
that's right.
Yeah, so make sure that y'all check him out and support him through Cash App. Also, he got a $sign Wanique Shabazz. So make sure you support him on all levels. Brother Wanique, you know, consciousness ain't the same way it used to be. I remember talking to Dr. Phil Valentine and telling him, you know, I don't even want to consider myself part of the conscious. I want to call it myself the conscious community. I want to be a part of that because conscientious means doing what is right. Conscious community, because everything has become something else like WWE nowadays. It's all sportsmanship and games, and everybody got to dress up and look like whatever they got to look like. What has happened from your perspective? Because that is a part of the whole question I asked on the fly. What has happened from the dedication that we have, even when we was in the 5%, that you will get a beat down if you don't know your 120.
You know your lessons, baby. You know your lessons. You got to
know your lessons. Be on it. Even in the nation, if you don't know your lessons, either push-ups or whatever, we doing things. And even in the unsought law community, if you didn't go out and do what you had to do, you get put on security for 12 hours. I've been on security. I did all this. So
on post, right? You got to be on post, right?
On post. What happened? What was the change? What was some of the catalysts? Because you was there during the 2000s of the gathering of the Grandmasters, and I know there was a thing between Bobby Hemmett, Khalid, Dr. Blair, Dr. Africa, Phil Valentine. What happened at that point? Because it was right there. I think that was one of the pivotal points when things started changing from 1999, like Prince would sing, 1999, don't you want to go? Well, we went to 2000. What happened from your perspective, brother?
Okay.
A lot. I know it's a lot.
No, it is. And it's something to really, truly look at in terms of where things started to, if you will, fall apart.
Yes.
And things begin to move into a space where things were dismantling.
Yes.
And I think that one of the things, of course, I speak from over 30 years of frontline broadcasting, and of course, interviewing some of the greatest minds and metaphysical masters of our time. Of course, from Dr. Jewel Pookrum, who also was president at some of the, and Dr. Sabi as well. I had the pleasure of interviewing him, and countless others who seeded the path for today's awakening. So the honor that I had of emceeing, because it was the gathering of the masters, so I was the master of ceremonies. So the gathering of the masters included all those, that you mentioned, some of those that you mentioned, of course, Dr. Layla Africa, and those who came through to really offer that, Francis Cresswell-Sing and all the elders who really truly had some hardcore lessons to provide us. The question becomes that the elders didn't just walk before us. They were the architects of our awakening. And let's make sure we're clear about that.
That's right.
So we're living in that particular prophetic I don't want to say in that sense, which they really truly gave us, the forewarnings about where we are right now. There's nothing that is happening now that we cannot relate and reference from what those lessons and those workshops and those presentations and those platforms that was happening, particularly one name and being deemed as the gathering of the masters.
Yeah.
And so obviously, when you have that much power in one room, in one house, or one building, you're going to get the clash of intelligence.
Yes. Yes.
But that class, that level of class is to can sharpen, and can only give you more of the capacity to stay within your craft and do what you do well. So there was, and I'm going to get into the nitty gritty of what happened, because there was a lot of that back and forth that happened that really truly gave the indication in my mind of where we were heading. And post that, everything really truly went in different directions, and people begin to start having their own level of what they wanted to share, because they had some slight differences in their capacity to want to teach the people and teach and provide the people with the wisdom that they need. So a sacred convergence, the gathering of the masters was a sacred convergence of visionary teachers, healers, and truth speakers.
Right.
And you had all that, in one setting, but the space wasn't just an event of the King Simon. It was a portal, a mirror, a mandate, right, for us to be able to use as that. And of course, it's been my journey to document, to decode it, and to deliver it, and provide the messages entrusted to our generations. Right. So now, what we happen to the conscious community, what I hear your question to be, what happened to the conscious community? And conscious community where is that geographically? I don't even know where that is.
Exactly.
That level of something that is elusive.
Yes.
Because many now speak in recycled sound bites. You hear it now on social media, or not rooted, revelation, but recycled sound bites. They're not rooted revelations. Like we used to be in the past. We started quoting elders, and not questioning ourselves. And that's really truly a real problem, because we didn't really get ourselves committed to the marching orders or the provisions that was being provided. So the movement became a marketplace, though. Where egos branded enlightenment for clicks, not community. Right?
That's right.
So the challenge of the day, is for us to ask, is what happened to our original navigators, and did we preserve their teachings,
right,
or just their energy? Because there's nothing, and I say that in absolute, there's nothing happening now that was not provided us as the prophets, the most of them were. We were told. Their words were not just guidance, but timelines, though, King Simon.
Yeah.
Of course, Dr. Sabian, what he spoke of food frequencies long before it was popular, right?
That's right.
Dick Gregory, right? Survival economics and detoxing the system. Beloved Dr. Francis Cress Welsing revealed the psychological war.
That's right.
There. Right?
That's
before
right.
it reached TikTok.
That's right.
And now their warnings are no longer prophecy, but present, like I say. So again, there's a lot to do, for us to be able to say when we know that they're leaving this particular dimension, so we can now take heed and take lessons to provide what we say they provided. So you have to first heal your origin, because I think that we take it for granted that we got here and that we ain't got no obligation, commitment to those who brought us here, and a lot of things that might hear. Because one of my crusades is making peace with your parents, right?
Yeah.
Now a lot of people take that to mean that now I want to honor these people who may not be worthy of honor. So it's not an honoring thing to that degree. We're not talking about what they didn't do that wasn't honorable. We're talking about you understanding that the peace that you're creating is a peace with yourself, as those parents. Because every thought, as I taught and learned well, is chemistry. So when we talk about reconnecting with the parents who birthed you into this incarnation, right, it's making peace with your path.
Yes.
Because the path is what you got relative, what makes makes you move through whatever your sojourn is and what you have to do as a purpose or pure possession of your life path. So if you're not really truly ready to start there, then everything you navigate through and to is going to have that level of dysfunction, toxicity, energy that is resentful, and it doesn't give you the full opportunity to grasp your level of incarnation and why you showed up.
Right.
So therefore, you can't make peace with that because you got that vehicle that we have, this body that we call the physical body, was put together from the chromosomes of those particular individuals that we call father and mother or parents. Those who are the parenthetically, those are the parentheses, that lock us in and put us into the brackets of what we represent. So I'm saying to you that internally, you don't got to go to the great big amount of time and say, oh, I'm sorry, you're great, and I want to make peace with you. You have to make peace with them as you, because you are them together forever for the duration of your life and your sojourn on this planet. So everything you do is going to be within the context of how you process and how you use the chemistry of them as your essence into existence, so you can be able to have the optimal health. So I dare say, all issues in your tissues, all disease that you may have, can be traced back to your concepts and your belief systems around what you think your parents were or were not for you.
That is true. That is true.
And we tend to use that as the basis for our judgment of them, and we don't want to have unconditional love because we think they're giving them a pass, so it's absolving them of something that they didn't do based on their own path. Because they have their own path that they have to reckon with, and they have their own level of reconciling or accountability for what they did not do. But they did enough to allow you access, and thereby that's where you can find the peace. Even if it is, no matter what the circumstances were, okay? Because sometimes you say, well, they were just having sex and they wanted to have fun and it felt good. That's what you can say. You try to dismiss the fact that you had some kind of way of inspiring that because you were waiting in wait, trying to enter this dimension, and you were encouraging that. You were part of the conspiracy to get to this vibrational dimension, that's third dimension. So you can access what your purpose was or what you want to do. You think you can walk into this dimension. That makes sense.
Yes.
I'm saying so when we do that, we got to return to cosmic law. So the GPS, which is I am the original founder and the originator of, that is called a galactic purpose signature, right? Coming from through and understanding the law of time and natural rhythms, right? And getting out of that clock time conformity. We're moving and navigating on false time. We're also being governed by the colonial calendar of conquest. Which is the Gregorian calendar, which has been set up to, in fact, maintain a sense of control of how you navigate based on you believing today is Tuesday, October 7th, whatever that means. That matters. We knew the correlation of that. That's why we said today's Elijah Muhammad's incarnation day. But it's beyond just what that is. What is the relationship to the cosmic reality? So in the cosmic reality, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came in, as the red resonant earth. So his level was based on his navigating this planet and telling us that we own the planet. There's 96,940,000 square miles.
Planet, right.
Talking about, the galaxy and the cosmos, actual facts, solar facts, what is really truly the method of how we navigate this land, which is 57,285,000 square miles, of land. And 139,685,000 square miles of water, right? That's what we were in part of it based on how this earth was navigating us and moving us as it turned on its axis. So that's something that we give credit and give respect to Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We can question the origin of where he got that from and whether or not, the person that he received it from was accurate or whether or not they were actually somebody that we can respect. But that's not really the truth about who we are. It's to give respect and give honor. And honor in the sense of making peace with those who came us. So we got to restore ritual too, King Sam. We got to practice must replace performance, right? We got to reclaim the sacred space that is ours. We have to now understand what we're claiming to be, who we are relative to our surgery. Where were we before all this other incarnation of evil and devilishment and all that came from?
Yes.
So meaning that we got to shift from audience to accountability.
Yeah.
Right? Support tangible alternatives. Like real consciousness builds real community. all this other thing people running around faking about and doing nothing to give any access to what's going to happen. Because right now we see that the end that we talked about, the destruction of the devil's civilization, the end of the devil's civilization, is really befalling us right before our very eyes. We're really in it right now. We literally are watching it happen and watching it implode on itself. Right? We're watching the self-destruction of this very empire that is inevitable that it has to collapse and it has to fold on itself because it was never sustainable.
That's right.
Right? So we're moving through that process right now, watching it happening, and we're still in denial to a certain degree. I say we, I'm trying to be generous about the we, because there are those of us who are making decisions and making choices and also stabilizing ourselves. So what? So we don't be in trouble under the rubble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we got to find shelter. Where's the shelter? You know, we were told to prepare, right?
Right.
Here is where that preparation lives.
That's right.
I want to share with that. That's when you mentioned the Build a Better World, that co-op, and what it represents for us to understand what the cooperative nature of our coming together. Of course, we talk about cooperative economics, but we talk about having an independent, indigenous move toward understanding who we are in the equation. We say indigenous because we understand it's in the genes of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? We know that we're the origin of all life on this planet, wherever we may find ourselves. And there are differentiations based on DNA and based on, you know, what people's representation is relative to the allele, you know, all that. But we have to be able to understand. Of course, the Build a Better World.iwb.coop is not just a website, it's a portal to cooperative refuge. And I want everybody to write it down if you see it there and peruse it and go ahead and navigate. You'll see the things that are available to us to maintain and move in a tangible way. Right? We tangible both in land and housing security, water and food, autonomy, community purpose, not performance.
Right.
Right? But it's rooted in this water bank. How many of us understand the importance of harvesting water and having water as a basis for what we are relative to that vibrational protection? Today we're guided by the power of universal water. I'll be, you know, derelict if I hadn't mentioned the fact that we have the indigenous water bank, which is principles in cooperative economics. That is a real-time answer to the collapse they warned us about. So if you're still renting Babylon, you're still falling into its fault.
Right.
If you're still renting Babylon, they mark this and put it into their psyche. If you're still renting Babylon, you're still vulnerable to its fall. Because it's definitely doomed to not yourself.
Right. I'm showing the website right now, family. It's on his everything. All his links are pinned to the top of the chat, just in case y'all want to follow and at least get a part of that program. Build a Better World.iwb.coop. So make sure you go ahead and support and get in and study and learn, because you know what we call preparedness is very important. I've been doing it under Aton Edwards for years. We were studying for like almost 30 years now, and I'm not one of the people that promote paranoia, but I do promote preparedness. Because
well, they call it. I mean, Dick Gregory used to talk and we used to laugh because he talked about a healthy paranoia. There's such thing as a healthy paranoia. You know what I'm saying? And a healthy suspicion. You got to be able to have that in order to keep you on point. You know, because remember they said, just because you're paranoid don't mean they ain't following you. Exactly. Because they may well be following you, and they are, because we're following them, and we're all on their social media giving them information that they had to work hard for. They had to plant bugs and gadgets and surveillance. Now they got you coming to them, giving you the opportunity to provide them what you're representing, where you're going to do, what your next move is, what you're talking about, what you're planning. That's all now trapped into the matrix of the artificial intelligence that we now find ourselves somewhat engaged to and enraptured by.
And who's serious and who's not. I mean, I was talking to an individual about, they asked me why I stopped teaching disaster preparedness. And I said, because our people are reactive and they're not proactive. And I get perturbed. So I focus on those who really want to learn. I mean, I got the books, but I also got the application. I taught a system called IATO, which is improvise and adapt. That's it. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. That was a job like the Marines used to teach. Aton taught us that from the International Preparedness Network, and he got a new book called Afro Prep, and he has a book called Preparedness Now.
Oh, okay.
I was doing so much in New York, and I even took people on walks out how to get out of the city, just to get 25-mile walks. You know what I'm saying? From Brooklyn all the way out to the city, out of the city, and even following the water routes.
The water paths, right? The water paths, yeah.
Yeah, we was teaching that. So, but after a while, that was happening right after 9/11. Everybody's on it right after 9/11.
Absolutely. I was getting ready to say that. I was getting ready to make that reference that's really truly when the universe and anything that happened, whether you think that it was conspiracy, they did it themselves, whatever they're doing at the will of the natural order of things. And things will not be able to allow them to continue to maintain a sense of power and dominance and control. Right. But things are going to happen that's going to allow for us to be able to determine what we want to do and what is our role and how do we identify ourselves. Because identity is going to be everything. Everything is based on, where you are relative to your establishing your rights, your indigenous rights, your rights to be wherever you are. Right. Because in fact, we're indigenous to the planet. So, when we start talking about different things and talking about continents somewhere over there, and that's fine because everything can be traced back. Some can have that trace. But then we got to make sure we know that we were all over the planet doing everything we possibly can. And we all come from one place while other places was unattended.
Right.
Other places was not, inhabited. That's not true.
Right.
We were building empires all over this bad boy. Every which way you seen us, we were building them. And we didn't have to start one place. We started from wherever we were and whatever our genetic pool put us into a space, and we all had the melanin dominance to protect us in the ozone. Exactly. So we had that provision. So I think that it's another question to determine how we're going to really understand the importance of what it is to be conscious, and yet still be asleep.
Exactly.
The hell of a contradiction to what you need to do, because people are sleepwalking, talking about they're conscious.
Exactly.
They're walking around thinking that they're being robots and being able to still talk about things that are not able to produce any substance or any results. And I'm saying to you, as you well know, and what has already been established and documented, that I know all those elders and been through all of them and represent and lived and worked with all of them. I worked with Puka for almost 15 years, 20 years.
Right.
And was able to move through what she had in terms of what she was providing. And then, of course, others, who really truly came through, because, of course, Dr. Phil and all of them, came through WRG, they came through Atlanta. And, we have a long environmental connection to what we know they were providing. Of course, as you say, Bobby Hammond and what happened with the friction based on that particular situation. But that was a part of the desire and the requirement for us to move into a space of empowerment, because they were now coming to internally destruct and destroy those bonds that was taking place at the gathering of those masters.
Right. And
because it was unprecedented.
Yeah, it was.
You have all people, brothers and sisters, and elders and scholars in one particular setting, one platform, and we got to give thanks to Brother Kevin for that.
Yeah, where is Brother Kevin at?
I speak to him often, not often, but occasionally, I want to say. And when I do see him, he seems to be okay, still focused on what he wants to do. I think he moves somewhat further south in rural Georgia, but he's still here in Georgia. But I haven't run into him in a while. I used to run into him in the local co-op here, but I haven't seen him in a while. But that's the point.
If we do talk to him, I would love to interview him.
I'm sure he'll get back to him because, like I said, that brother really truly took a lot on him to do it, because he was the one that was responsible for getting together, when we had the Black Media bookstore. Yes. He was the one responsible for making sure, that we got information and everything was provided for us, particularly in those elders. And most of those elders are now transitioned, as you stated earlier.
Exactly. And what's so funny, brother and family, please continue. Remember, hit him up also at, let me say this, because we are coming up upon the hour. Those who want to cam up and come in, I have put the link in the chat if you want to cam up and ask a question of our great esteemed elder brother here, Brother Wanique Shabazz. You got this. This is your chance, baby. These are the Mohicans. You know, these are the first of the Mohicans. They're not the last of the Mohicans. They're the first.
Yeah, man. That's an interesting portrayal. I can appreciate that. Yeah,
exactly.
We live in those cliches out, ain't we?
We are, brother. And after I was saying, I remember, after seeing all was coming up in what we call the woke community. Every names change every 25 years or 20 years. Right. The woke community, the conscious, this and that. FBA, ADOS, all this is going on. I'm like, I still hold to the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that says we are the original man. The Asian, the black man, the maker, the owner, the creamer, we that. Period. I don't give a damn. I'm not giving up none of this earth. It's ours.
Well, I mean, you bring that up, and I'm saying to you, that's a whole nother discussion about people coming together and having these conversations about who we are and what our origins are. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not say we were African.
Exactly. He did not say we were African.
And I'm not saying that to disparage, what it is to be African, but he made a point to understand that the 17 million plus the 2 million Indians, that we were already existing. And that, he made it clear, that, we were representative, and then put into the lessons the question as to why does the devil call out people Africans,
right?
And then obviously that was a whole nother level of what he was showing us, that we can understand that we are the original man. Right. And we are originated, especially when we talk about, the Shang dynasties, of course, the Sea dynasties, in the Asian Peninsula, where we were actually at our presence, and we truly have an origin, as opposed to having to be navigated across some kind of, geographical terrain, or being forced by way of the Ma'afa or, drudgery. That story has its place, but it's not an absolute story.
And then you had people like Renoka Rashidi that did his studies, and then you had Robin Walker that's doing his studies and adding on, not taking away.
Baba Renoka went every which way he can. Everything he did. He went to the deep recesses of those places to find us, and of course he still identified them as African too. And me and him had that discussion and conversation. And when I spoke with him, I was on the platform with him, and he talked about that, but he didn't really have any resistance to what I was saying and what we were trying to convey. He understood that, but he really truly wanted to stay on the narrative that that everybody all things originate in Africa. Right. And that's I'm not here to debate that. There's ways to debate that, because I've been on the air for 30 years talking about that, and we've been asking for people to come forth if they want to debate the facts. So we don't have a situation where they think that they can take us from any landmass, and make us, which is the hot political football of the day, is immigration, and who are migrants and who belongs and who don't belong. Right. And we have to determine if that's the case, and we are owning to that point that we are that, then we have to determine whether or not we can reestablish that we are in truth that, so we don't get deported, under the guise that we have somewhere else to go.
And when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the same powers that be that's telling the deport, if they found out their heritage, they'd probably be thrown out.
No, they would. They would.
Exactly.
They know probably about it. I mean, obviously it's clear, but it's like the ultimate irony is to have somebody trying to, because they want to claim a space that they can claim their own, but they're losing fastly because they don't have the numbers to maintain any sense of popularity, because being that they know that it's all a numbers game for them. That's why this whole idea of white supremacy is another myth, because it's really dealing with inferiority complex, because they want to maintain what it is to be the appearance of white, which is the pigmentation that they're dealing with, the phenotype, and they want to maintain that as being the power that they lay in maintaining holy whiteness, and whiteness, of course, is a political, it's a political structure. It's a political construct. Yes, it's not really something that's real in place of identification, but it's utilized to support their desperation in knowing that they don't have the numbers to maintain that so-called supremacy that they're trying to espouse. That's right. But as long as they can maintain a sense of control and power and make a division in every which way they can, and then try to criminalize and demoralize, other parts of the planet, black and brown as they are, then they can maintain a sense of dominance and the small, minute numbers that they really truly represent.
Right.
But see, that's a whole nother discussion about how we function within the context of saying and making the claim of who we are by proof, not by just, trying to avoid
Right.
No, because because that's futile. It's fruitless.
And Brother Wanique, that's why feet on ground, boots on ground, hands in ground. That's why Ivan Van Sertima was so important. Renoka was so important. Shekanta Diop was so important. Dr. Ben was so important because of those boots on ground and willing to go and travel and go research. And I mean, some people almost got killed trying to go and find out if these cadavers of Kemet was us. Some people, a lot of people don't read. But what do you feel about the people that have the nerve to try to critique the elders? And I got no problem critiquing knowledge, but instead of adding on, they're trying to destroy the elders in this day of conscious woke community nowadays.
Yeah, it's
I know.
Because we got to be put into perspective, though.
Yes.
And like I said, and I have nothing but respect and adoration of the elders who make their presence known based on their scholarship.
Right.
And what they really uncovered and what they unearthed.
And they didn't have all of this. So
and they didn't have all the convenience of putting things into a search engine and then coming up with all kinds of stuff.
Exactly.
So they are still held up as being as powerful as they were relative to what they had to work with. And that's a good point you're making.
Yes, sir.
But now when we come into this space, you don't have to negate what they have done to try to make a point. If you want to make a point, make it parallel to what we know we continue to do, and know that what their work was provided, it was very much, relevant and very much, has a significance. But if some of it is just, it could be debunked, or some of it can be, disclaimed or critiqued to the degree of saying that it may not be accurate, then we should be able to maintain that we have enough maturity to do that, and not at the behest of downing, denigrating, disrespecting their level of contribution, which is immense. And they have really truly did a lot of work. So we have to determine what is needed to be able to do that in a way that doesn't create the level of division that people want to have, to say that we're trying to say one is not right, one is wrong. But no, the thing is that we have to come to grips with it, and we have to own up to the truth that's being espoused all over the place. There's a lot of recognition about our level of origin from on this particular terrain, this particular landmass, we call America, and how we build it. We didn't build it to slavery and drudgery. That's the biggest myth. That a lot of things you see established, and a lot of the mounds and a lot of the pyramid structures and all the things you see on this particular terrain was already existing by way of us.
Exactly.
And there are cases of us being present in our melanin dominance and our blackness that was primarily from the vibration of what? Being present. So therefore, did slavery happen? No, we're not denying that it happened.
Yes, right. Of course not.
They slave who was here. they necessarily had to go to Africa to get nobody.
We was already here. So.
So it's more convenient to enslave who was here. But the question becomes, if the Indians that we talk about, the Red Indians, are that which is the owner of the land, originally they call them the native. They're not native. They may be Indian. They may be, but they're not native to what we're representative of what is taking place. If you know the history, and you do about the 5 tribes, and of course the 5, tribes in Florida, and the way that the battles that happened, the wars that happened, that happened back in those days, that was pure, melanin dominant, black, if you will, Native Americans.
Right, exactly. That's what.
But it isn't. Not, well, this is maybe you can make it rhetorical. My thing was, talking about the ownership of that. Why is it that you would think that those who are now native to this particular land, they call them the Red Indians or whatever? Why didn't they get the land? Because they knew the land better than everybody. Everybody knew the harvest and the land. They would know it.
Exactly.
See, but the point is that those particular group of people were not, but we were. But then they give us the idea that we were brought over. And there were those of us who was.
Yes, that's right.
But I'm saying they are not. It's not an absolute story that we all were.
Yeah, right.
That's all I'm saying. That's what's being said. That's what's being stated. That we can't let them take us away from our ownership and claim of the land that we know that we harvest and work and we build the mound, build empires, all over this planet, and we build what this particular country represents. And it was not just under the rest of the Yurugu,
right?
Or what is under the Alpha. And that story has its place. Let me make sure it's clear. If you want to understand, I'm trying to dismiss and discount those who actually did the research and those who have an affinity to understand our Africanity based on that. But then there's those of us who understand that we actually truly had what they call the Olmec newborn. They keep talking about the Olmecs, and they talk about how the Olmecs are representative of the original who build all the calendrical systems and everything that you deal with relative to the pyramid structures in Palenque, South Central America. All of those things came from the originator of the Olmecs, who had been proven to be original, but now it's also being somewhat cross-contaminated, saying that they were African first.
That's right. That's right.
And that needs to be explored differently and more readily about whether or not that's actually true, that they actually migrated from somewhere else before they got here to build all the things that they built. Because they're finding now, King Simon, they're finding all kinds of remnants of our existence in Olmec heads on their territory.
All over the place. That's right. That's right.
And we knew we had in our head, because they call Olmec heads and colossal heads, because we knew we had to make sure that when we came back to claim stuff, we can find things that was waiting for us to claim ourselves. And this is where we understand the systems that come up with based on understanding the prophecies that all converged, that our harmonious convergence when 2013 arrived, and 12 was the ending, the closing of that cycle. There's so much that could be provided in evidence that we are in fact the originators of all things relative to this landmass. And dare say that you gotta be clear about what that, because if you're not clear about that and you say that you are the hyphenated one, then they're coming for you in terms of what your origins are, because that's what they're trying to, and they're trying to infer that if you're not registered to be somebody who is from here based on your identity, then they're going to be talking about, okay, let's talk about immigration and migration, and also trying to remove people from this landmass, because they're trying to make whole and lay hold to that which is owned by those who are the originators of this particular landmass, geographically speaking.
Brother Wanique is in the building, family. Y'all make sure y'all gotta support. Nobody's called in. Nobody's got. They must be enjoying what they hear without going to go. So, family, make sure you support our brother. His links are pinned to the top of the chat. And I'm going to get into another question. Don't go nowhere. We ain't finished. I got another question for you, but I want to make sure y'all go to the websites that he have. Of course, WaniqueShabazz.com, buildabetterworld.iwb.co-op. Also, his radio show every Monday.
Map time.
At midnight, right there, around midnight. WRFG.com. What's the call numbers again?
89.3.
89.3. Make sure 89.3 if you're in Atlanta, the surrounding areas. But online, you could go to the .org right there, the WRFG.org.
That's right.
Relationships, my brother. No, I'm about to go there, because I've been married 3 times. I went through divorce 3 times, and
bless your heart.
Bless my heart for real. I've talked to certain elders that went through polygamy. And they all end up with one wife at the end of the road. As they
the Quran says 4 is nice, but one would do if you don't even knew.
That's what the Quran says. Yes, sir. That's right. So, what is it going on with this relationship thing? Because I know people are getting into polygamy or polygyny or poly, but they don't have
polyamory, right? Yeah.
Polyamory, but they're not using the protocols of this to even build empires or do structural things that can make this happen, or even practicing monogamy correctly.
Absolutely.
So what do you say about the transition of what's going on now in relationship as far as the conscious or the woke community, my brother?
Well, I mean, I must speak only for myself and directly to myself, because I know myself best. And I know what it's like, to be in a position where you may have access or the opportunity to, try to employ or to engage in more than one individual in a not polygyny as opposed to polygamy.
Polygyny and polygamy.
And if you're not ready for it, you're really not going to be able to successfully pull it off. I think it's important. Well, I say pull it off like it's really a feat. It's really a combative thing to maintain a sense of what you need to do relative to speaking to what it is to represent yourself in a way that can support others, particularly when it comes to men and male and female, men and women. So to that question is that I know, and I've been to a lot of places. I've been a lot of navigations. I had a lot of interactions. I have provided access to this dimension to different mothers, and I tell my children now that I gave you your own mother. I have some respect, But I think that we have to really determine whether or not we're suited to be in any relationship. There's a lot of brothers and sisters who do powerful work in understanding the importance of complementarity, and what it is to really make a decision to have somebody that you are in full union and equally yoked to, and that could really truly build, a higher level of your sense of self. And I think that most don't realize that it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of work, and a lot of integrity to maintain a sense of commitment. Okay. And because some of us still working through wounds of, unstable wounds based on what it is. I told you I had an issue with my parents dividing the force and me having determined who I can trust relative to what that experience, provided me and what I should do relative to that. And of course, having, more occupation of wisdom and knowledge, and information, it gave, that sense of commitment. It can be difficult. It can be challenging, right. And one must be emotionally mature.
Yes. To
be able to make those kind of commitments, those long-term commitments. And I'm not saying, that even if you're not, sometimes, you run your left. People come, to provide you a reflection of where you are based on your consciousness, because we always are creating our own reality based on the vibrations, magnetic force field that we present. So we're going to find ourselves in spaces and places with those who are there to reflect to us what we represent based on our level of development and growth, and our sense of, mental, emotional, and spiritual and soul, right. Vibrational collectivity. And when I say that, I talk about mental, emotional, spirit, and soul. Right. That's an acronym for the mess, that you can find yourself in the physical realm, because mess is those four intangible bodies. This is part of the work I do in terms of the GPS right. that I provide in terms of which they'll see on my website. And the mess is really truly something that you have to determine if you want to take time to humble yourself. And this is from the masculine standpoint, the male standpoint, to be able to accept that which is going to be a union. It's going to reflect you and have a long-term vibrational thing. There's things that you well know about this, the idea around twin flames and how people come together, based on a long-standing agreement, that they are bound to come to this dimension so they can union themselves into a space of spiritual development and growth, and there's many ways that you can find that out, and you'll know that by virtue of what comes up based on your own force field. Mm-hmm. The same thing, of course, people talk about with soulmates. We're all soulmates. We all come here to mate with each other from a soul level because we're interacting with each other more readily, but it's important to now understand what your trauma is based on the trauma that your parents provided you. Because a lot of our level of connection is based on what we think our mother was or is, or what your father was or is. And a lot of your grounding of energy based on relationships is going to be based on your perceptions of those parents.
That is the truth. I can definitely attest to that, because I actually, but Wanique, I'm afraid to get back into a marriage again. I can be honest about that, because my mother threw my father out. And then I went through my own abandonment issues and watching that, and to the point that even my father and I was talking about it. He's remarried, been with that wife for the 30-something years right now. My mother's not remarried, have not been with anybody since my father. And seeing that coming to those dual things, seeing that he's happy with his marriage now and she's never got married again. I look at that, I'm saying, and then I look at some of the aunts that didn't get remarried. I look at some of the women in my mother's side of the family that didn't get remarried or lost or threw out men or whatever they did. And I'm looking at my father's side that they got married or they stayed together until death do them part, whatever happened. I'm like, wow. And so I got afraid because, again, like I was telling before about abandonment issues from a young and my parents had to work at night, so they had babysitters that kept them. They stayed in another room. They might put me to bed, but I'll wake up and like, what the hell's happening here? Where's nobody's here? That can happen. So those are in my psyche. And then that throw out that my father got, and I was at the window watching her throw him out with her, holding us in her arms. I'm like, that can be really painful.
Yeah, it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing, but the trauma or the drama, you have to determine what you're going to do to really truly heal that trauma. Because the truth is that you got to be able to make peace with that.
Yes.
You see, and this is part of what your fear is about. Your frightening response is that, that there's a level of you not trusting that you know that you will now, because of what you may determine your behavior may be, because I remember your behavior is your savior. Not the idea of save.
Exactly.
But the thing is that you know that a lot of that is contrast and the inability to really settle yourself into respect and to trust, you know, that you're in a good union, and that union is going to allow for you to be able to develop and grow if it is in your cards and, you know, in your numbers to do so. You know that.
Yes.
You know, so the question becomes whether or not we have the capacity to really first heal it within. I would say, I dare say, people got to get this. It's really something that's not just mumbo jumbo,
right,
but it really is a clear understanding of your obligation.
That's right. Right.
The obligation is to be able to settle into what you know, your trauma and your unresolved issues in your tissues.
Yes.
That you have not addressed. That's creating for you a force field that may be causing you to have these combative relationships or relationships that don't complement, because you're still dealing with your own projection of that which you have relative to the part entities or the pair of entities, which is your parents. This is why you can't get away from that. Because you are very much entrenched in what they represent. And your life is always about how you can win their approval, acceptance, and the acknowledgement that they represent for you, because you're trying to always get back to what they represent as those who are the caregivers for your existence. Right. So I dare say, that the level of your capacity to heal your parents' relationship.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, I want to make you clear, it doesn't mean you got to go find your parent or go sit down with them and whatever. No, you got to find that peace within yourself that says, I love myself unconditionally, meaning that you love your parents unconditionally.
That's right.
You know, I love my chemistry. I love the way that I function. Therefore, I don't have these issues in my tissues that are based on the chemistry of my negative, resentful thoughts or my abandonment issues. Because whatever you put through the chemistry of your body reflects what's going to be attracted to you, so you can get that experience in real time, so you can be able to navigate that, so you can heal the issue, resolve the issue in your tissues about those parental guidance. Because they are your chromosomes, you are them, regardless of what. If you say you hate your father because you have some issues with the way he did and he may have been abusive, egregious, you got to not say that you're giving him a pass because you say, I want to heal that, by saying that I'm making peace with that, or I forgive that, or I have unconditional love, and I'm getting out of the judgment of what they represented. Because you're not doing that for him, you're doing that for your own sense of self-imagery.
And hold on one second. Hold on one second. Stick a pin right there, because I ran into organizations to get away from my parents, to see what was the ultimate spiritual experience, so to speak, because running into 5%, my father's gone from 8, running to 5% at 14. We're looking for male figures to give us guidance. Then really leaving from the 5%, going into the Ansar Allah, looking for male figures to give us guidance and discipline, and leaving the Ansar, going to the Nation of Islam, giving me guidance and keep me. And when I wrote the letter to my father, Brother Wanique, I wrote it. If you know what writing in red is, that's me. I'm giving him. I was writing in blood oath. My father, he's a former Marine, so he recognized what I was doing. I wrote it all in red. I didn't cut my finger and do this, but I did write it. I wrote the letter to him in red, and he was very touched by it, you know, because he understood that I put Farrakhan, I put Malcolm X, I put Clarence in that letter. I put all the father figures that I went chasing.
And you know, it's also a desire for community, you know.
Community.
You know, because that's usually what the family represents, you know, a community that you really truly come from. Particularly, we have two sides of the community that you come based on lineages, you know, that kind of thing. So you want to be able to have a sense of knowing who you are, so you can be whole. You know, I mean, you got to learn who your father's people are and your mother's people are if you can. The best you could do is find out what they represent and what you inherited and why you chose them in the first place to get here, and to have that chemistry to be who you are for what your purpose may be. You know, and if you accept that and you take that as a part of your responsibility without trying to be in denial about it because you want to say that you ain't asked to get here, And after you watch the process of what it takes for the magnetic force field of the sperm to kind of find that ovum, and the ovum drawing you in, and you the one, and you had the victory once you are competing with those trillions of other sperm cells,
Exactly.
I mean, you gotta say something about that. Is more than just a happenstance situation because somebody was bumping and grinding after a club night.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You got to really take responsibility for the fact that this was your insistence to be here. And being insistent, you have now be persistent to understand that you have to be consistent in understanding your level of incarnation. And one of the things that we talk about based on, the GPS or galactic purpose signature, you get a chance to really unfold that and unload that and unwrap that and unload that and unpack your life into what you represent as a fully encompass DNA packet of chromosomes that are here with a purpose and a divine reasoning. And if you understand that and you accept that, you have a lot of respectability comes from that. Because remember, you or your parents together forever. I don't care what you think. If you didn't know your father because your mother didn't know him, or something happened, he escaped, or he moved faster than he, you got to go back inside and know that everything you're experiencing that may be based on the masculine vibration or based on that yang energy or whatever is his representation. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing you have to do is cultivate that. And the way you cultivate it is not to say, I need to know him. No, you need to know yourself. Know thyself. Hail thyself. And once you do that and you say, I want to nurture that part of myself that I don't know, and I don't want to be in judgment of it and be resentful of it, because that's going to show you where your body starts in your right side. Because remember, they gave us both two sides.
Yeah.
We got an arm on this side because your mama provided. We got an arm on this side because your daddy, and everything on that right side he provided. On the left side she provided, and this is how you become whole. So they never held hands. Well, you hold hands. They can hold hands if you hold hands.
Yeah, right.
If you make that resolution, you can be able to heal that. You can understand, how to hug, make them hug themselves like you're hugging yourself.
And you said that, but I'm more of a hugger now than my mother's. Not still up to this day at 80 something years old. She's not a hugger like that. She's not. She's trying, and I'm glad because I'm still in communication with both of them weekly to make sure they all right. And we talking because one time I didn't talk and I shut down. I left home at 16, 17 and became Muslim. Mm-hmm. I left. You know what I'm saying? And left them doing whatever they did and just stay focused. So I'm glad that you said what you just said because
we got to do it because nothing's going to be successful. I'll say this now. I'm going to try to be absolute with this. Nothing's going to be successful until you come to grips with the fact that you are the compilation of your choice. And those are the two individuals that you chose. And those two individuals you chose, you have to give them what is necessary.
Right.
It's not about you trying to make them something that they are not, because that's their journey and that's their path.
That was their journey.
And I'm saying you don't have to honor if they have behavior that is egregious. I ain't about honoring that. Right. I'm talking about making peace with it for yourself, so you can now function in a way that is high quality. Because if you don't, you think that your father is whatever, your mother is that, you're going to have that as a self-talk, and that's going to create what you have now in the issues in your tissues. And this is why dis-ease is defined by your chemistry of what you're eating per se. You may feed yourself because of the issues to allow yourself to perpetuate and exasperate whatever that illness is, but it doesn't come from, what you're eating. You're now feeding that which you have destroyed in your sense of self. Because you don't have a sense of connection to yourself as a whole. Because you are taking it for granted. You have more appreciation for showing up in the space that to those two individuals, pair of entities that gave you the capacity to be what your purpose is. And you don't have to, you don't have to run around talking about I love you, daddy, I love you, mama, forgive you. That's not what it's about. Can you have a self-talk about that? A level of appreciation for that, so you can be able to now become empowered to do what is necessary because they gave you access to the gateway of this particular dimension. And now you have a capacity to now hug yourself, kiss yourself. You got two lips because they gave you two lips. You got a pair of nostrils where you can smell both sides, two eyes so you can see things from both perspectives. That's what they provided you. And you are the whole being, the holistic, which means the whole with a W, the whole list of things that you now are consciously relating to or that you see.
We have a guest. Can you answer some questions real quick, brother? You good?
I trust I can. I don't see.
All right, let me welcome my sister from Sexy Spirit TV, Paris Blair, in the building. What's up, Paris? How you doing?
Blessings.
Blessing.
I just came into the live about maybe 5 minutes ago,
Yeah, yes.
and I was really enjoying
Thank
the
you, Paris.
Baba's breakdown of how to find some peace in some of the things that you went through,
Yeah.
and I love the things that he was saying about the poly relationship. And I have a question about the poly relationship, but what he was telling you regarding your family, I was wondering, Baba, do you also incorporate the chakras as a way to kind of get to the root of some of that trauma?
Absolutely. Because, it's not a question of incorporated, they exist. But now you have to have a conscious awareness of it so you can now tap into the force field that it provides. So, because that chakra system is real. We have a system that actually allows for you to be able to resonate with the energy fields that come with the color frequencies, the color dynamics, right? Because that is what, we are moving through, because everything is color. And we have to move within the context of the vibration of the solar energy, which is the sun, that gives the light frequency to the colors that we now call red, green, purple. All that comes from the original soul energy of the sun, which is a how we call a how. Kanicha how. And so that's part of what the representation of your getting in alignment, because the chakras allow for you to become one and whole in your being. Because the schizophrenia and the bipolar and all that stuff is because you're still divided as a tug of war between two individuals that are parents.
Right.
You see, because those parents are really truly still, again, 23 chromosomes. You can't get around the 23 chromosomes that they gave you. Your mother gave you 23, your father gave you 23, they came together. Now you have this union of you at the 46 together in your purpose. And the best way to seal that is to have the chakra system aligned. But now you got to understand, within the Olmec New Moon cosmology, we talk about the 7 centers, and of course that which is the 7 plasmas, and that which is allowing for you to energetically become what you said you are based on your incarnation. We call it the incarnation, the kin carnation, the skin carnation. All that plays into your capacity to be stable, and the color frequencies are very much energetically that. Question. I'm sorry, I know it was a long yes, but yes.
Any other questions, Paris?
I was wondering if I could share something with you, Baba, about how I use my feminine energy in the chakras to lead a man like Simon, to a better healing space. To get your opinion on it.
Okay, we're gonna have to bring this up. We're gonna have to bring this up a little closer. Go ahead.
Simon, when did you say you had your first memory of the trauma, when you talked about abandonment and things like that?
It was around my 2 years of age. 2-3 years of age. Matter of fact, my mother even clarified what I've been thinking about 10 years ago and said, "Yeah, you got the blunt of it because we was both working at night and things was happening." So yeah, before my sister was born, so she was telling me that. I learned.
And so, Baba, I work a lot with men, and what I do, because sometimes men aren't going to be vulnerable at first. The way King Simon is, he's emotionally, working at a high emotional intelligence and things like that. So he might feel more comfortable being vulnerable. But what I tell them, like what he's telling me right now, that's just one trauma, but that would put you between the ages of 1 and 7 when the root chakra is developing. So where I would go is, instead of talking about the trauma until the man brings it up more, I just talk about the color, and I talk about the age, and then he pulls out some of the things that he's processing the way that King Simon is. And what I try to do is leave space for a man to process it like a man before I bring him into my energy field and feminize, his experience. And so I focus on the age, and I focus on the color. And I ask him to tell me what he feels when he's, breathing in through his nose, inviting spirit and holding, and then letting spirit take all those things that he feels, releasing as he exhales spirit from his mouth and, keeps that cycle of breath going. So I wanted to know what you thought about that and anything you could encourage me with.
Well, sis, I dare say that you are on point in terms of tapping into the cosmic energy of your masculine self, because that's what you're doing when you're trying to navigate externally men who actually have the avatars, that are meant for physical difference in terms of, having different ways of how we process, all kinds of energy and chemistry, whether it be muscle mass and things of that nature. But I think what you're representing, and I probably would really, truly, but I would really encourage you to go to my website and inquire about this galactic purpose signature so you can see where you actually are doing that and why you're doing it so well. And you can get some confirmation because they do a GPS report. King Simon, as you talked about him, he's the galactic storm, a blue galactic storm.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thunder beam, that's what he is. Right? And his level of intention is based on him being able to harmonize in order to catalyze so he can model the energy that he represents so strongly. But he also seals the matrix of self-generation with the galactic tone of integrity. So a lot of times you hear him speak about who he is and what he represents and what he has done and who he has provided that for and what he has done over the years and how much he has even been challenged about whether or not he has integrity based on his business practices and all that, and his energy feel about him being actively involved with some of those out there who may be living in their shadow energy, even though they claim to be woke and conscious. Yes, and finding himself attached to those and finding himself being engaged and involved with them because some of that vibration actually drew to him that which is the negative process of him seeing himself better. But he's guided by the power of abundance. That's why he's so rich and so lavish in terms of what he provides. And I dare say, if you get you a full GPS reading, and I'm saying that for the purposes of this opportunity, for, they call it a shameless plug, that the GPS reading, the galactic purpose signature, helps you navigate your life. And I dare say that you would have nobody who says they read it, open it, and really see it, how they are being able to be identified so clearly, accurately, because it comes from the Olmec New Moon science. And because of our ancestors left us that particular wisdom and language, we now have an opportunity. So how do we navigate on the landmass that we say is not our own? Mm-hmm. But then we find that they left us semblances and signs of themselves that we are from here, and we got to go back and get that. Even if it's going back to where they call Central America or South America, where the pyramids and structures, which is really truly where the Aztecs and the Zapotecs and of course the Mayans. But the original vibration of that is the original Mexicans, if you will, the Olmec, the original, the old Mexicans. The real ones, the ones that actually came and settled on landmass, including right here in what they call North America. Because all America, it's not over here, it's different. This is North America, South America, Central America is only one landmass. And we created that, and we cannot be lost over here and not know who we are. Remember, most of us who were born on this territory never got a chance for rites of passage.
Rites of passage.
You notice that? That's when they cut off the rites of passage. So you didn't get a chance to get a connection to what your indigenous rights were or you were in the genes of us. You didn't get a chance to know whether or not you really came from Africa or were you already here based on your native, because a lot of them Southern and people from this region has stated over and over again that my grandma said she was Choctaw and my mother said, and then you got people who try to negate that and fight that and say that's not true. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying there's some institutions that try to do DNA test and tell you that that you're not native.
Right.
Where did that come from? Why is that? What is the problem with that? Because we're not here to negate and to not deny Africa as being a powerful source of who we are relative to our population. We're talking about what is it about our population right here, and why is the so-called African Americans so different and so unique? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is it because of different locations that we have been that we came from or we were dragged from that is reported? Because that's not an absolute story. That story is true to a certain degree, but it's not absolute. And I dare say most are not savvy enough or have enough patience to do the real research. So they take what they give and say, "Oh yeah, well, we're all from Africa. We got here by way of slavery," and that's not true. Right? That's not true. That's so simply not true.
So Paris, I want to thank you. Any other questions before you?
Paris, if you go to my website, I think you and I should build a little more about some things that, I think that will help you understand those chakra systems more readily and more forthrightly.
Yeah.
And I thank you for coming on and asking the question.
I got one more.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
One more.
What would you say to a young woman who has been very much manipulated by the music and the media to think that she's a bad bee, and that she's a play, and that she's supposed to get flued out, and she's looking for masculine man because all these other men are feminine? What would you say to a young woman between the ages of maybe late 20s to early 40s that thinks that way?
Well, I have daughters who are from late 20s to the early 40s, so I might say that I can identify with the fact, that I don't know what I would say because this is a hypothetical, and I don't like to give hypotheticals.
No, brother, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I never interrupt men when they're talking, but I wanted to say it's not hypothetical. I'm literally going to bring women over here to watch this live when it's recorded.
Okay. No, I'm saying hypothetical to me, for me, to make a statement. I'm saying it's not hypothetical that you're saying that. I know it's true based on referencing it. But I would say, because therefore, it's not one cookie cutter answer to none of that. Because you got to really explore what their influence were and what they understand, what their parental influence were, what their issues and their tissues may be. Why they think that they're self-esteem. Self-esteem means what the word implies, estimation. Esteem is the past part of the word estimate. How you value themselves and what are our reference points. Because somebody's saying they're a bad bee, you have to really have a time to take time to really decode and decipher why they are drawn to what you're now speaking to, their behavior is. Well, it's a delicate thing. It's very delicate.
So that they'll probably point immediately. The women that I would like to send over to this recording, when it's recorded, they'll probably point to past relationships where they were done wrong. That's normally where they go to because they're not looking back as far as you're talking about, and they might not have the patience now because they have that social media intelligence. I'm sorry, what do you call? What is that? Where you focus? I can't think of the word. Attention span. So yeah, and I know you're a very deep brother and very elevated at the same time. So I don't want to diminish how you present, but if they said I that's the reason why, because of the men that I've been dealing with. That's why.
Well, when you say past relationships, I only go back to the past relationship with their parents, their mother and their father, how she perceives her father, what he represents for her, how she perceives her mother. And that's going to be critical. But now to do that, it has to be delicate enough to say where, if you ask the question, like I said, people who may be laying up in hospitals with maladies or pathologies, and if you go in there and you ask them, what they're feeling about their mother and father, so oftentimes their first response will tell you exactly why they're in the hospital sick. And I learned that, from Dr. Jewel Pookrum, because obviously, she's a renowned gynecologist and, of course, metaphysician. So she represents that which she knows to be, because she actually was a medical doctor. But there's a lot of that.
Dr. Jewel Pookrum, so everybody understands.
Yeah, I just say that. I'm sorry, I said it real fast, didn't I?
Yeah. Dr. Jewel Pookrum, sir.
Right. Well, I'm saying to you, she has the credibility that she represents based on her work, her life work. And I know that firsthand because me and her worked together for many years, 15-something years. So I know that the sign that she spoke to is really credible. And that's vitamin minerals from A to Z. But sister, let me just make sure I'm clear with you that if you don't have the capacity and they don't have the patience, because most people would not ask that question. We don't want to know. Like, say, for example, the parents that we have, we judge them so much, but we never ask them what happened to you. How was your childhood? What's your influence? What's your experience? What is your perception of what it is, to have a mother and father and what they represent? Because it goes back, in generations. And generation means the ration of genes, right? That we actually have, created, the gene ration. How we rationalize things that we know is necessary for us. So I'm saying to you, the reason why I call it hypothetical and it's relative, as in kin, as in family, relative, is that I wanted to say to you that it was hypothetical because I would not know that in a general sense to tell them what it is that they have their problem. Because every problem is unique. Every issue in your tissue is unique until the experience that they receive and their perception of what they really think life is. And if you talk to them long enough, and that's the thing about listening. I'm sorry, I know I keep cutting you. I know you're trying to get them, but if you listen, you'll hear the pain where it came from.
Yep.
You see, you can understand that the pain is It's not that far away. It's not that far. Even though the immediate distraction is that I just want a man, and I don't care, and I don't want to hit up. But there's something about that parental influence, those peer entities that will show you where they make their perceptions come from and why they're so strong about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. And tell them where your channel is, my dear, because I know you got your channel. Talk about your channel.
Okay, you're watching me right now here on YouTube at Parish Blair TV. If you like to follow me on Instagram, I am Sexy Spirit TV there, and on TikTok, I'm Parish Blair TV and Parish Playdates.
I got to bring you on as a guest co-host. Did you get my text earlier today? Because I sent you a text. Did you get it?
Yes, I was at the grocery store when I saw it.
So, okay, all right.
Yes,
making sure you're all right. But I appreciate it.
That made my heart smile. Thank you so much. Thank you, brothers.
Take care. Peace and love.
Peace.
All right. Yeah. So it's a very good sister, man. I've seen her. I never met her personally, but we've always been online with on other podcasts together, man. We always end up on a pod. But brother, I'll give you a last word because we're going on 9:37. We're going into. I don't want to go too deep at 10 o'clock, but we're here. But brother, this has been a very powerful one, man, and I appreciate all that you have offered our community, man. Being the person that you are, that's been doing this for such a long time. You're my elder. And I got to respect my elders. I've learned to respect my elders over the time since the 5% lesson. I've been doing that. So, but man, thank you so much. Any last words you want to give to the audience before I let you?
Of course, yeah. Thank you, brother. I want to thank you first for seeing or finding me so relevant and so,
yes, sir.
Worthy of being on your platform, and that I came to you and you said, well, let me just see whether or not he's willing to come on. I appreciate that.
Yes,
and honoring what you represent. Your work has been longstanding over time, very much viable and credible based on the numerical system, and you give a lot of wisdom around people and showing the correlations and trying to allow people not to be victims about certain things that happen based on you see it in the numbers, right?
That's right.
And I'm saying I give thanks to that because that's wisdom that we have to necessarily take on, because you're one of the healers,
yes, sir,
of our community based on your work and what you have done based on your long-standing commitment and study of neurology.
Thank you.
So I would ask the question, this is what I want to close with.
Go ahead.
To all those who are listening and those who are receiving and somewhat, appreciating what I'm providing, I would ask, whose wisdom did you inherit? And are you living it or leaving it behind? Again, whose wisdom did you inherit?
Yes.
And are you living it or leaving it behind? Have you made peace with your parents? Or are you still fighting your own roots? Have you made peace with your parents? Or are you still fighting your own roots?
Right.
The final charge in cosmic redirection or benediction is this. I am the red lunar earth. I stabilize the timeline. I walk in synchronicity. I honor my elders or make peace with them. I prepare in truth. I build a better world, even in the rubble of the old. I build a better world, even in the rubble of the old.
Yes.
So I want to close with this affirmation, if I may.
Please.
I reclaim the memory.
I reclaim the memory.
I restore the map.
I restore the map.
I walk the earth at my elders.
I walk the earth at my elders.
As my elders prayed, I would. I evolve with the challenge.
I evolve with the challenge.
And I am never lost.
Thank you.
Only call back into alignment.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. Let me give that a well-deserved round of applause, of course. Let's give it some love. Thank you. Make sure y'all go to his website, family. There it is. And click on, get that galactic purpose signature by my great brother here that's doing so much well. A master number 22 in the building. I gotta give that energy. I thank to Queen Esther, Mother Esther, and Blair for coming in, Paris Blair for coming in, and everybody, Joy, Naya Williams, everybody that came in. Thank you very much, and everybody that came in. Ramza, everybody. You remember Brother Ramza in New York?
Oh, Ramza, of course, Brother Ramza. Yeah, the ring. Ramza was doing rings and everything.
The late great brother. There's a brother that comes on my channel. His name is Ram.
He was right up there with Melchizedek. You know, he was they were competing with each other about the rings and the universal flag. Of course, Melchizedek was really truly one of the ones that actually always had the universal flag for us. But Ramses was also a jeweler for the Nation of Islam. You know, in fact, I mean, the commercial, right? Ramses, of course.
Yes, he made the ring. He made the ring for Malcolm there, man.
Absolutely.
So, and I spoke to Sister Shahrazad yesterday, man.
Oh, how's she doing? How's that sister doing? That's another person. Yeah, she's beautiful.
She goes through her ups and downs, but she's beautiful, man. She's beautiful.
Me and her used to talk quite regularly, quite often.
I gotta give you a contact to call if you want to talk to her.
Tell her she probably still has it, but she doesn't give it to her. You're free to give it to her.
Yes.
Because we've been, rocking and rolling, and when she was very much in the heat of her controversy around her trying to get us to pay attention. So we get thankful for her being able to be committed, and she being able to maintain a sense of focus and still be with us on this plane. So, but you did say, I want to say closing also that that a lot of elders are transitioning because they're giving us opportunities to step up and step forward. We should dismantle the idea that there is a such thing as a conscious community, because there is not. There's no geographical location where we can point to. The consciousness has been foregone, and it has been, for long to be destroyed. And if we don't have a plan of action, then we're just talking.
That's right.
So the Build a Better World is something that you can look at, you can study, you can represent that which is important for tangible results. You can see, where it has been established and the credibility of actually the brother who is responsible for doing so much powerful things, always going back to the guys in the masses where he first showed up as hypnotic. But if you go through the vibration of what we're talking about, you'll see exactly where credibility lies and where it really truly stands. In the full integrity and ethical ways that you're doing your work for the King. So we got to make sure that we're clear, that we maintain a sense of commitment to that which is important. And again, don't be scared.
That's right.
Be prepared.
Be prepared. Thank you very much, Baba, man.
Ain't like this, brother. Ain't like this. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you too, my brother. Man, that's our great Baba. Wanique Shabazz in the building. Want to thank him once again for showing love and showing up. And thanks for the person that came in, Paris that came in. I want to thank everybody that came in the chat, all of y'all that came in the chat. Believe me, it's not, as long as you don't spam the chat and become a troll, I'm cool. But just be respectful of the chat. Ashe, of course, to the great one, Queen Esther. She is the one of the partners of the one, the only Queen of Four, man. And of course, the thing coming up for Baba Heru, they're gonna be doing a memorial service for our dear brother Baba Heru. Of course, I forgot to ask the brother about Assata Shakur and get into all of that. But next time I'll have Baba on here soon again to do what we got to do, because Assata Shakur was also a powerhouse that really showed us the importance of alignment with other nations and Caribbean islands and Africa and all that. That's why she was able to stay in Cuba for the rest of her life and do what you got to do, because you have to be in alignment with places that don't have no extradition, so people don't, just can't come and take you out of nowhere, like China and different other places. You can't just come and take somebody out of certain places in the world if they don't, so that's a whole nother conversation. So we're not going to get into that right now. Once again, I want to thank, of course, Wanique Shabazz. Make sure you support him on his website, waniqueshabazz.com. And of course, his links are pinned to the top of the chat. Like our great Bob Marley says, people that are making this world worse are not taking a day off. Why should we that are trying to bring solutions to this world? Paraphrasing Bob Marley saying, like the great Dr. B says, I forgive myself, my family, and others for imperfection, and I am grateful for my life and thankful for my life. Like the late, great Dr. Blair used to say, please, universal creator, know in our hearts that we love you. Please protect us and this planet on which we live now. Please open up our mind, our spirits, and our soul to seek only truth and your love now. Late, great Dr. Blair used to say that. And thank you, Dr. Blair, for all that you offer. I did show a book, one book, Jewel Pulchrum's book. I got the elders' books. Matter of fact, she signed this book. Yeah, she signed this book. Jewel Pulchrum signed this book, family. So big up to Dr. Jewel Pulchrum. Very good book to have. Vitamins or vitamins, minerals, from A to Z with ethno consciousness. Very good book to have. I got Dr. Africa's book. I got everybody's book, Queen of Fools, everybody. I got even my sister's book. My beautiful sister, Queen Esther's book is here. So Tassila Ma'ad, everybody's book is here. So enough respect to y'all, man. Thank y'all very much. Have a great day, afternoon, or evening. Today's Consciousness in the Conscious Community. This was volume 26 or episode 26. Man, look out for this legendary reggae artist, female reggae artist, and cultural reggae artist coming up on Friday with her daughter, Sister Carol. Award-winning Sister Carol will be, and also actress from Wild Thing. She was also did the soundtrack for Wild Thing, one of the songs for Wild Thing, and was one of the actors in the movie. And of course, her daughter, her beautiful daughter, who's also taking her position in the reggae world and the conscious cultural reggae world. This is their first album together, called Beyond the Sky. So look at her beautiful daughter in front of her. That's Sister Carol in the back. And there will be on my platform at 11 a.m. on Friday, a special broadcast, October the 10th. So let me remove that thing on the bottom there, the scroll, and on the bottom there, so y'all can see. When you got legends, this Sister Carol was a person that was very instrumental when I became a reggae dance hall artist and got up to number 5 on the reggae chart with my chart hitting song called Black and White Story, which I also wrote. This book, the red book that you see here, is based on that particular song. That red book on the bottom, Let We Tell the Story, is based on that song. So make sure y'all go to Amazon or Kindle and get that book. I think it's Amazon. I'll go to my Linktree /KingSimonthenumerovator and get that book. Another sponsor, highheelsapothecary.com, highheelsapothecary.com, where botanicals that support the healing of the bodies. Big up to her. Big up to 340. She got to develop another flyer, another banner, but 340 Worldwide. Got to shout her out because she was in the chat also. And big up to one of our newest sponsors, the one, the only, Joy Divine Love. Free 30-minute chakra wellness consultation with Joy Divine Love with each book purchase. Her ebook is available right now at beacons.ai /I Am Vegan Vixen. All right. She got a book called Chakra Wellness 7-Day Detox. All right. So make sure you get that book and get a free consultation so she can help you out throughout the course of your detox also. And remember, join my Patreon membership at King Simon Productions with an S at the end of Productions, and also my membership on KSP Media. I'm about to upload it. I'm just making sure me and the special guest is going to be in alignment so we can do the recording and then upload psychoanalysis. As I break down the number, they will break down the meaning from a theoretical perspective. So I'll be having that person on. I ain't going to mention who it is because it's going to be a surprise. So y'all got to be in the membership to make that happen. Also, big up to my new book coming up on Numerovational Relationship Chronicles and Workbook for Mental Healing coming in very soon on ebook. And then we're going to put the solid book out by my birthday on February 1st. But this is coming out this month based on my 2 bestsellers. But it's taking me a little time because I'm downloading, uploading, writing, and doing cross-reference to make sure I'm on point with what I have to disseminate in this particular relationship book because it's important for me. Also, I'm learning along the way as I'm studying and applying it to this book. And also, if you want to go on a trip with the legendary Baba Ashra Kwesi, it's a historical trip. This ain't no alien trip. This is a historical trip as he was taught by Dr. Ben and all the extra added stuff. So if you want to support him and go with him and his beautiful wife, the couple together as one, they've been doing it for near 40 years. 214-371-0206. That's 214-371-0206. Go in and support our brother. Take that trip. Even to Ethiopia. It also got an Ethiopian trip also. And big up to Nicholas Brooklyn. If you want to go to Nicholas and purchase anything retail, 10% off with all that you purchase over there retail. The one in Brooklyn and the one in Manhattan, they just take a snapshot of this and show it to them. But if you want to do wholesale for your store and your market or whatever, contact them at 718-858-4400. And another one of our sponsors, 800-396-MIND. That's 800-396-6463. I'm in 3 hypnosis sessions. My second one is coming up on the 9th of this month, hypnosiswithkendall.com. It definitely has been very helpful, very enlightening, especially through my dreams, because she's tapping into my subconscious with a lot of the stuff that she's allowing me to open up with. And also, again, get my books on Amazon. Big up to this beautiful sister, transitionalhealing.etsy.com, transitionalhealing.etsy.com. She got Grandma's Secrets book, Know Thyself book. Make sure you support all the books there. Lloyd Strayhorn, of course, Lloyd-Strayhorn.com. Support brother Lloyd-Strayhorn.com, 800-581-4401. I'll be on his show November the 10th. Monday, November the 10th, I'll be on his show promoting my 30th celebration and promotion and production. He's one of the speakers. We just confirmed Brother Black Dot will be one of the guest speakers at Nicholas on the 15th and the 16th. Brother Shabazz will be one of the guest people. Abundance Child and Blue Pillar are the keynote speakers for the both days. Also, Paris Williams will be speaking, and Lloyd, definitely, like I said, Lloyd Strayhorn, and 2 reggae artists are supposed to pass through just to say a few words about that industry that we was in, because I'm celebrating 30 years in promotion and production. And reggae was a part of my life. Dancehall was a part of my life. Consciousness was a part of my life. Hip hop was a part of my life. If I could find my hip hop friends from back in the day from SOB's nightclub, I will call them and see if they can make it out there, like from BDP Posse, like Jamalski, if I can bring Jamalski out. I haven't seen Jamalski in years, but if I got his number, I'll contact him. And it is what it is. So family, I'm celebrating 30 years in promotion and production. This will be the last celebration of promotion and productions. 30 years, that's it. I'll still be doing my own promotion, but I'm taking my numerovational brand to another level and starting off those repetitious celebrations also every year after that. So, hey, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh and talk some knowledge, the kind of knowledge you will not find in college, but it's up to us to all use it, be it, remember it, realign with it. Family, take care of yourself. Big up to my sister, New Diamonds. Make sure you support on newdiamonds.net. New Diamonds on all platforms, and her Cash App. She's one of my surprise guests that comes through every now and then. All right, so family, this has been today's consciousness in the conscious community. What happened? How can we change it and heal it? And our brother Wanique gave a great breakdown from his own perspective right here on the most honorable Elijah Muhammad's birthday. Family, take care, be safe, be great, one love.